On the eve of December 24th, 1945, the Sodder family home on Route 16 near Fayetteville, West Virginia, was alive with the warmth and anticipation of Christmas. Jenny Sodder brushed flour from her hands onto her apron, her fingertips dusted white as she set a plate of fresh pastries on the kitchen table. The tree, trimmed with hand-strung popcorn garlands and tinsel that caught the flicker of the fireplace, stood in the living room corner, its lower branches sparsely decorated where little hands had struggled to reach. George Sodder, the patriarch, sat in his usual wooden chair by the window, occasionally glancing outside at the snow settling over the family's coal delivery trucks parked in the drive, the worn tarpaulin covers dusted with the evening's fresh powder. Upstairs, the younger Sodder children, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, giggled as they hung their stockings with string and thumbtacks along the mantel, whispering secrets about Santa Claus. The family's older sons, John and George Jr., had returned from their shift at the family business, their boots leaving muddy prints in the entry as they exchanged playful jibes over who had worked harder. Sylvia, the youngest at just 2, sat on the rug with a battered wooden doll, occasionally glancing up at her siblings with wide, wondering eyes. As the evening wore on, Jenny and George said goodnight to their children, the older boys retreating to the attic bedroom, the younger ones lingering in the living room, unable to contain their excitement for the morning. The house, constructed with sturdy timber and lined with wallpaper printed in faded floral patterns, was alive with the subtle, ordinary details of family life. The hiss of the coal furnace, the tick of the mantel clock, the faint scent of pine needles and baking bread. Outside, a faint wind rattled the window panes, but inside, the Sodders moved with the familiar comfort of routine. Jenny double-checking the kitchen stove, George locking the front door, the children's laughter muffled as they finally settled down for the night beneath patchwork quilts. None in the family recognized the importance of the small, seemingly inconsequential moments that defined the final hours before the world outside would intrude, and the Sodder home, filled with the gentle chaos of a large and loving family, would soon become a locus of mystery and heartbreak. On the eve of December 24th, 1945, the small city of Fayetteville, West Virginia, lay shrouded in an uneasy calm as snow flurries drifted through the narrow streets and smoke curled lazily from the chimneys dotting the hillsides. The townspeople, still weary from the waning days of the war, hustled through last-minute Christmas errands, their boots crunching on icy paths as shopkeepers shuttered windows and strung garlands across faded storefronts. In this close-knit Appalachian community, the Sodder family home stood as a beacon of warmth, its windows aglow with lamplight and the scent of pine and roasting chestnuts mingling in the air. Yet, beneath the surface of this festive tranquility, pressure simmered. Rumors passed in hushed tones at the barber shop, in church pews, and along the post office queue. George Sodder, the family patriarch, had earned a reputation for both generosity and outspoken views, particularly against Mussolini and the fascist regime that had gripped his native Italy. In a town marked by strong ethnic ties and lingering political tensions, these stances had not gone unnoticed. On Main Street, a group of men gathered near the furnace repair shop, their breath steaming in the cold, casting furtive glances toward the direction of the Sodder home as they muttered about foreign allegiances and loyalty. That evening, a dark-haired man parked a battered pickup at the base of the Sodders' drive, stepping out to peer intently at the fuse boxes and wiring strung along the weather-beaten clapboards before disappearing into the night, his boot prints quickly covered by falling snow. Children, meanwhile, chased each other through the alleys with red cheeks and woolen scarves trailing behind, but their laughter held an edge, the grown-ups' unease filtering down into their games. Inside kitchens, mothers pressed dough into pans and fathers stacked firewood, but their conversations circled back, again and again, to the latest incidents, a threatening stranger seeking work, a telephone call with a cryptic warning, an unexplained accident involving the family truck. The mounting tension pressed in on every doorstep, as if the cold itself carried whispers of unrest, and the glow of the Christmas lights seemed to flicker with uncertainty. As night deepened and the first church bells rang out over the valley, the city's people drew their curtains a little tighter, each household unconsciously bracing against an invisible force gathering around them, binding their fates to the events soon to unfold at the Sodder residence. Inside the modest two-story Sodder home on Route 16, Fayetteville, West Virginia, Christmas Eve 1945 unfolded with the familiar sense of pine, coal smoke, and Italian pastries. The walls, stained slightly from years of wood and coal fires, shuddered with the laughter of 10 children. Their stockings hung unevenly above the brick hearth. Jenny Sodder moved from the cramped kitchen to the parlor, tidying up the remnants of a celebratory meal, plates with traces of panettone, cups still warm from spiced cider. Outside, the December air pressed cold against the single-paned windows, and snow crunched softly beneath the boots of Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny Jr., and Betty as they played near the gravel driveway, their shadows cast long by the flicker of Christmas lights strung haphazardly across the porch. Upstairs, the older boys, John and George Jr., shared whispered stories in their attic bedroom, the floorboards creaking as they shifted, while the youngest, Sylvia, nestled in her crib beneath a patchwork quilt. The home, though weathered, was alive with the subtle movement of a family at peace. Doors opening and closing, footsteps on linoleum, the hiss of the coal furnace. Streets outside were quiet, with only the distant echo of carolers drifting through the frosty night air, and the occasional passing of a 1941 Chevrolet, its headlights cutting momentarily across the facade of the Sodder residence. Nearby, neighbors celebrated in their own houses, the glow from their windows mingling with the faint halo of oil lamps and Christmas bulbs. Inside the Sodder home, the clock ticked past midnight, marking the end of familiar customs and the beginning of an enduring tragedy. The clock in the Sodder household ticked closer to 1 a.m. on Christmas Eve, 1945, as Jenny Sodder, restless in her bed, was startled awake by the sharp clang of something striking the roof. The house, a sturdy two-story frame structure nestled near Fayetteville, West Virginia, had been bustling with activity earlier that night, the aroma of pine mingling with the laughter of children and the promise of holiday warmth. Downstairs, Jenny's husband, George, slept in the master bedroom, exhausted from tending his hauling business, while their 9 children had drifted off to bed in the rooms above, save for 2 who had grown too drowsy to make it upstairs after the festivities. As Jenny slipped quietly from her bed, the sharp scent of smoke snaked its way under her door. In the darkness, she padded barefoot across the wooden floor toward the staircase, her pulse quickening. Flames were licking at the walls of the downstairs office, curling hungrily along the wallpaper, illuminating the family photographs in a flickering orange glow. George was roused by the commotion, his voice booming as he called the children's names. He, Jenny, and 4 of the children stumbled toward the exit, the heat forcing them to shield their faces as they scrambled through the smoke-filled hallway. Outside in the frigid night air, they counted heads. 5 children, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, were missing, last seen sleeping in their attic bedroom. George dashed back to the house, his bare feet crunching over the frosted grass, but the back door was already a wall of flame. He sprinted to the side of the house where his ladder always leaned. In desperation, he smashed the window of his coal truck, intending to drive it up for a rescue, but the engine refused to turn over. A second truck also dead. The noise, the heat, the desperate shouts, everything coalesced into a single, irreversible moment as the roof sagged inward, and the flames engulfed the upper floor. Neighbors, drawn by the glow, arrived helplessly late, standing at the edge of the yard as the Sodder family watched their home consumed. In that harsh, cold hour, a boundary was crossed from which no one could return. The 5 Sodder children, their fate uncertain, vanished into the fiery night, a turning point shaped by the stubborn materiality of locked doors, missing ladders, and the cold mechanics of silent engines. In the quiet aftermath of Christmas 1945, Fayetteville, West Virginia, became a crucible of uneasy memory, as the blackened ruins of the Sodder family home stood as a stark witness to loss and confusion. Each morning, George Sodder could be seen sifting through the ashen remains with a garden rake, his calloused hands pawing gently aside clumps of charred timber, searching for fragments of bone or any sign that would confirm what had happened to his missing children. Around him, neighbors would sometimes gather in silence, their breath visible in the crisp winter air, eyes fixed on the ruin, while their children clutched their coats tightly, their faces pinched with a mixture of fear and somber curiosity. The absence of familiar voices echoing from the Sodder house, voices that had once laughed and fought and sung, was a wound in the rhythm of the town. The stack of beloved tours, unwrapped and untouched, remained by the scorched entryway, their colors faded beneath a dusting of snow, a silent testament to interrupted lives. Over time, the Sodders' determination to uncover the truth took shape as a daily ritual. Jenny Sodder, her apron dusted with flour or ash, would write letters to officials and specialists, her pen scratching across the kitchen table late into the night as the lamp flickered overhead. The family commissioned a billboard on Route 16, meticulously painting the children's likenesses onto wide wooden planks, their eyes peering out at passing cars, as if pleading for remembrance. These visible actions, the raking, the letter writing, the careful painting, etched the event into local consciousness, a tableau of unyielding hope and gnawing uncertainty that neighbors recounted for years, sometimes in hushed tones by the fireside, sometimes with a shaking finger pointed at the hill where the Sodder house once stood.